The Airbnb boom of the 2020s has ended, and that presents a huge question for short-term rental owners, especially here in the Pocono Mountains. Do you take this time to sell your property now, or do you hold on to it long-term? Look, I know it's an extremely tough decision to decide to sell your property. You put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of mental capacity, a lot of stress, a lot of money into it, right? And you don't want to sell it. I get it. I'm going through it myself. I've been considering selling my property, but I'm just not there yet. With that, I have developed certain filters to run this scenario through to see if it's the right time to sell, and I'm going to go over that with you now. The first filter is the market conditions and how much your property is worth now, because that's something to truly consider. What's the market like where you own your short-term rental in the US or even outside the US? Is it still strong? Is the demand still high? And then you have to think about the property values. What's your property actually worth now? I will tell you this. In the Poconos, I purchased my house in 2021 in September for $350,000. Now it's worth about $425,000, $430,000, which is amazing, right? But I put so much into it, and that doesn't necessarily make me want to sell it just because the appreciation is there. Now, I will say this, people in the Poconos, especially who purchased their home in like 2020 or even 2019, they paid way less for that property. So if you purchased during that time, 2018, 2019, even 2020, and you have like $200,000 of equity, maybe that is a good filter to say, hey, I think I'm ready to sell. And then you think about it. Is now a good time to sell because of how much equity I have? The market is the market is the market. We don't know where it's going. We only know where it's at right now. And depending on where you're located in the US, you're either in a seller's market or a buyer's market, but there's a huge chance that you're probably still in a seller's market, which means that it could potentially be a good time for you to sell. The second filter to run it through, and it's probably one of the more important ones, is the financial performance. Is your short-term rental still performing where you wanted it to be when you first purchased it and where you hoped you could get it? Now, there's so much that goes into the financial performance of your short-term rental. Some key factors that you need to look at are the occupancy rate. When I purchased my property, I know that the occupancy rate was way higher than it is right now. And I rode that high. I was super excited when I purchased it because as soon as we listed it on Airbnb, we were getting bookings right away. But now I know that the occupancy rate has dipped. Not tremendously, but it has dipped in the Poconos, and that makes me consider it, right? Like I know where it is now, but I also know where it can be, and that's something that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But the occupancy rate is a good thing to factor in, as well as the average daily rate. What are you still getting for your property? Again, I know, personal experience, what we were getting in 2021 for the average daily rate is not necessarily what we're getting now, even though we made it better, even though we improved the property, right? So there's so many different factors to look at, but the financial projections are ones that you should consider very seriously, because if you purchased a short-term rental under the assumption that you were going to get it to a certain occupancy rate, to a certain average daily rate, and you were able to maintain your expenses where you wanted them to be, if you're not hitting those goals, then maybe it is the right time to sell. And understand where the market is going. You have to understand what market you're in. If you're in the Poconos or the Smokies or you're in Joshua Tree, wherever, you have to understand where it's possibly going. And if it's declining, maybe it's time to get out. If you think it's on the up and up, maybe it's time to stay in, but these are important things to consider. I get it. Selling is never fun, and I know how stressful it can be. I've helped over 100 people sell their properties. I've helped countless of my agents with listing homes, and I've helped investors consider selling their properties as well. So I know firsthand that selling is never fun and it's very stressful. So if you're thinking about selling and you want someone to work with who understands the process, who's an expert in selling properties, Click the link below, schedule an appointment with me. The third filter to run it through is the regulatory environment. And I can't say this enough for the Pocono Mountains. It changes all the time, from township to township, from HOA to HOA. It is always changing. And I'm sure it's like that in other areas, but when you invest in the Poconos, just know you're generally most likely going to invest in an HOA, in a lake community, because that is where people travel to. There's a small portion of people who aren't investing in these HOAs, but they're still in certain townships. Townships ban it. Townships put caps on the number of short-term rentals that you can have. They have all different kinds of rules and regulations, and you have to know what is coming down the pike with regulatory changes. My community, Talmenting Trails in Albrightsville, PA, when I first purchased, there was a lot of noise and they were having a ton of meetings about it, and then they put into place a short-term rental alliance of sorts with long-term people who have lived in the community for decades and years, and then people who own short-term rentals and a board member. And then I thought everything was great. It seemed like it leveled out and it seemed like there was no issues at all. And then at the beginning of this year, I get an email saying that there's a special meeting for short-term rentals coming up actually this Saturday, April 6th. And I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? So everything can change with regulatory issues, and depending on where you're at, you have to understand that, and do you still have the capacity to deal with that? Do you still want to own a property in an HOA knowing that they can change the rules just like that? The next filter to run it through are your current real estate goals. When you purchase the short-term rental to where you're at now, does this property still meet your current real estate investing goals? Do you want to be a short-term rental owner? So many people that I've seen and talked to purchased a short-term rental and then realized pretty quickly that they didn't want to manage a short-term rental because it's very labor and management intensive. And that is something that you really need to consider, because it's not like long-term rentals, right? It's not set it and forget it. It's not put a tenant in for a year and then hope you only hear from them a handful of times. No, it's turnovers, right? 40, 50 turnovers a year. That means you're dealing with 40 or 50 different guests throughout the year. All kinds of different issues, logistics, dealing with cleaners and photographers and maintenance guys, plumbers, all of that, right? Do you want to deal with that? Does that fit your current real estate goals? Or would you rather be more hands-off, purchase long-term rentals, whether it's single family, multifamily, commercial, whatever it is, I don't really care. But you have to consider that, Does a short-term rental still line up with your real estate investing goals? Because if it doesn't, then it's probably more a good idea for you to sell, especially if you met the previous filters. And the last filter to run it through, and it's probably one of the most overlooked ones, is it still fun for you? Is it still fun for you to own a short-term rental? Because there has to be a level of fun, of creativity with it. And that's what I love about it the most, is the creativity that I'm able to have with it. And then in addition to that, my family enjoys it as well. And that's something, I talk about it all the time, it's so overlooked, the fact that you can go to your properties, you can vacation there yourselves, and you love it and you enjoy it, right? But if it's not fun anymore, if it sucks the life out of you and you just want to get rid of it, then it's probably time to sell your property. Run it through those 5 filters and see if it makes sense for you to sell your property. One little bonus tip for you. If you're curious about what you would make from selling your property, or if you're considering analyzing a new property buy, go through biggerpockets.com. I actually have an affiliate link below that you can access the tools that they have. Biggerpockets.com is the largest real estate investor website there is, and they have the best tools to analyze deals, see how much you would make on a flip, and see what your property would be worth as a short-term rental, especially if you're buying a new one. Click the link below and get started using their tools. There's so much that goes into it. These are just the 5 most important filters that I would say that you need to run through to see if it makes sense to sell your property. And then again, if you're considering it, You have to do the right thing for yourself, for your family, and put yourself in a solid position. If you're looking to sell your property in the Poconos, I can help you. If you want to work with an expert in selling your property anywhere in the US, just reach out to me. Click the link below and schedule a call with me, because I can link you up with some of the best real estate agents who have experience with short-term rentals in the entire country. I make videos like this all the time about investing in short-term rentals. I absolutely love it, even though I consider selling it at some times. So make sure that you continue to stay tuned for the channel for all my updated videos about investing in short-term rentals, investing in the Poconos, heck, even long-term rentals too, because I still love that as well. Talk to you soon.